Roisin Willis, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. It's good to be back. How are you?
Doing really well. Briefly discussed this before the episode, but then hit the record button. So flowing into things, you go back to school in 2 days. Most everyone that I know is back on campus and has been for quite some time. How weird is it to be back home in Wisconsin, not in Stanford, and have all your friends gone?
Yeah, it's been definitely a very chill past 2 months. Wisconsin has a little bit of a different flow than the Bay Area, but I actually still don't go back for like another full week. I'm going on a trip to Italy on Friday, and then I'm going to
Wow.
school next Saturday. So I still have even more time, but yeah.
Italy, that is an interesting place for cross country training. Are you worried at all for getting the miles in, or have you like gone on Strava and seen like the segments and local places to run? Or is this team training camp?
Well, no team training camp in Italy, sadly. But I'm only there for like 5 full days. So, I mean, if it's a little bit rocky for a few days in there and not ideal, that's okay. We're still kind of getting back into the swing of things. So I'm getting kind of my last good weekend and then taking a little bit of a down week and then back into training once I get back from there. So, yeah.
I don't know how much you've raced overseas. I actually know you have for like U20s and whatnot. Those I don't think are always as far, but how do you balance training within a day where you're like on a flight for most of the day? Do you take that day off? Do you run off the plane? Do you wake up super early before the flight? What's the general strategy there?
I'm trying to think. We've had a couple long travel days. I mean, more just like we've done a lot of races in Boston, which isn't, overseas, but it's still like a 6 hour flight from California. But I think if it's a super early flight and we get in super late, there's not a lot of options. So sometimes our coach will have us like run on the treadmill or like just get a walk in just to like loosen up our legs. I mean, I'm an 800-meter runner, so like getting in a lot of miles or missing a day is okay here and there. So usually we're pretty chill about it. I think the best thing you can do is just like go with the flow. I feel like a lot of professional athletes give out that advice because they're always traveling overseas and you never know what happens with like flight delays or whatnot. So just kind of like shaking out the legs when you can, but just staying relaxed is the best thing you can do, I think. So
So like let's take a 6 hour flight, or maybe you're already thinking about the Italy flight, which I'm sure is longer. What's the like Roisin Willis certified plan to get through a 6 hour flight? Music, movies, podcasts, trying to sleep. What's the general timeline look like for you on a flight to get through it?
I love listening to music on flights. Like I just think it's like euphoric. I don't know. And I like going on like airplane mode, just like when your phone turns off with all the notifications away. I feel like you're able to like zone out pretty well. But during school, I don't have the option just to kind of like goof around on the flights as much because we're pretty like busy with classes. And a random fact about me is like I'm really good at working on planes. Like I can get like it's like the most productive I'll ever be. So like I'll write like all my essays on my flights and stuff like that. So usually on a 6 hour flight, I'm like working for about 5 of those hours. So which during school is kind of what you have to do, especially if you're going to a meet. So a lot of homework usually, maybe some music, Netflix if I can, but usually not. So
What's the general playlist like for you when you're studying, and for the sake of the people clearing this up, Spotify or Apple Music?
Spotify,
Nice.
first
Good,
off.
good.
But when I'm studying, I don't typically. Sometimes I do like the lo-fi beats on YouTube, but usually I don't really have anything, just like my noise canceling headphones with nothing playing.
Really?
um, yeah,
That
just
might be
I
a hot
really have
take.
to like I know. I just like I have to like lock in. It has to be something really simple. I can't listen to like actual stuff with like lyrics. I'll get too distracted or start fidgeting with the song. So usually just try to keep it chill. Usually nothing playing. So yeah.
So you're a Spotify gal. I have to ask, I think Wrapped normally comes out in November. Just trying to give all the Apple Music people FOMO here because they aren't cool like us. What are you expecting from the Spotify Wrapped? Top song, top artist, roughly, if you can think. Or is it one of those scenarios, like for me, I'm like, I have absolutely no clue what it's going to be. It could be one of 10 artists I listen to.
Hmm. I feel like it's gonna be pretty similar to last year. I had a really interesting top two artists. They're like very different, but number one was Lana Del Rey, and number two was Metro Boomin, which is like kind of a kind of a contrast. But I honestly kind of predict similar things this year. I don't know about top song. I think it's been Space Song by Beach House for like the past 2 years.
Amazing song.
Great song. So I wouldn't be surprised if that popped up there again. I'm pretty like I get obsessed with like the same song over and over again. And I'll play it a bunch of times before I get sick of it. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe a new favorite song will pop up at the end of the year, but we'll see. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever publicly stated this for no specific reason. More so, I just don't talk about Spotify Wrapped on the podcast. But if you know Beach House, do you know PPP by them? That was my top song last
Yes,
year, which is
that's a
random.
great song.
Random.
Great
Most
song.
people would be like, never heard of it. But for whatever reason, I think I listened to it like 180 something times last year. It popped up and I was like, wow, I'm a little embarrassed how much I listened to that song. But Beach House, sleeper artist, in my opinion. Most
Very
people
good.
don't know him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, Metro Booming album last year, I think, or maybe early this year. What was your take on it? Or it was this year, right? Because this started the
Wait,
Kendrick Drake beef with Like That.
it. I'm a big heroes and is it heroes and villains? Yeah,
Yes. So
that's
maybe that was
my.
last year.
Was that the album? I don't know. I'm lost in all the rap beef. I'm
Let me
sorry,
look at this.
but
Heroes and Villains was 2022, and then this year was We Don't Trust You.
oh, okay. I liked Heroes and Villains better. I liked some of the songs in We Don't Trust You, but I think Heroes and Villains is a top album for me
Do you have
for
a
sure.
top three from the album? If you can think, if you remember the songs. I'm testing your Metro is
Um,
definitely going to listen to this podcast and wants to know.
yes. Around Me is number one. That actually might be my top song of the year. Number two, is it Too Many Nights? Is that the name of
Hmm.
the song?
Yeah, amazing
Yeah,
intro. The
yeah.
intro to
Or
that
maybe
song is
no, maybe
crazy.
maybe Creepin' number two, Too Many Nights three. But Around Me
Okay.
number one.
Okay. I like it. I like it. Those probably two of those would probably be my top three. I feel like there are four or five
Okay.
songs that I really like in that album. So quality picks, quality picks. So for you, is the distinction like Lana Del Rey, casual listening, and then like going to the track, get hype, Metro, and that's the distinction there? Or are you one of those people that like is listening to hardcore rap as you're just walking throughout your day? Like people will see you walking on the Stanford campus and you're listening to Heroes and Villains.
I feel like, yeah, you never know what you're going to get on the day. I feel like I probably have been listening to a lot of heroes and villains just walking around. But I feel like when I want to like channel my like inner Lana, it's like my more like feminine side. So I definitely have a very like aggressive side when it comes to track but I like to turn that off a lot of the time. And so I feel like when I'm wanting to like channel my more chill, feminine, like getting ready, that's my Lana side. But I have to flip that switch pretty often, so it's good to have options in my music.
Going back, you said you're incredibly productive on plane rides,
Yeah.
specifically these Stanford to BU type plane rides. I do know from other people on the team that they have had to take midterms in their hotel before.
Oh yeah.
What's the process here, and have you ever had to go through that?
I See, I don't take a lot of exams just because I'm a history major, so the majority of my like work is like essays and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of people on our team are like very STEM heavy, so like they're taking a lot of exams. I don't know if I haven't had to take a pen and paper exam, like a lot of them. I've taken like online stuff, like psychology exams, stuff like that. But I'm mostly just like writing and reading all of the time while they're doing their P sets and exams and whatnot. So I differ from them on that part, but I feel like, yeah, if you're traveling with the Stanford team, you're seeing a lot of people on their laptops like 24/7. So yeah.
For you, again, we mentioned that Stanford starts much later, but because of that, you guys get out so much later than most schools. Do you like it that way? Have you adjusted to that way of life, or do you prefer, or would you prefer one of those like start mid-August and then you get out like first week of May, end of April?
I think it would be a lot easier for us if we started a bit sooner because we actually have to take finals around like outdoor NCAAs. So it's just a lot of work on that end, while most schools like end their school like before conference or like during conference week, but like we're literally taking midterms during like Pac-12s and all of that, so it does make outdoors a lot harder. And it's definitely frustrating because all these schools are basically like living like pros and just like kind of showing up for practice, and we're still in like the trenches. So yeah, it definitely makes our life a lot harder. I mean, I guess it's nice to not have school right now, but like I also had school like June 15th around that time. So I don't know. It's definitely not the easier way, I think, for a college athlete. So
You're probably, I think you are in the thick of training because I think I saw on TikTok, everyone go follow Roisin's TikTok. You said something about a long run, maybe? I forget the TikTok.
yes,
I know you're training
yes.
for cross. Well, how's that been going? And what's your general take on cross as a 800-meter girl?
Um, well, last year I was kind of slow to start, but this year I got a quicker start and I'm like in much better shape this time this year than last year. So that's exciting. It definitely was pretty tough starting out those first 3 weeks since I took a whole month off after track, and getting back into kind of like easy runs and distance running is not my forte. So, but now I'm like 4 or 5 weeks in and kind of enjoying it now. I'm able to go for like, a 7 mile run without, horrendous pain. So that's great. But yeah, I didn't love cross country in high school, if I'm being honest. I found the 5K really long and hard. But I do like enjoy kind of like being a distance runner for a few months. And maybe I'll jump in a race this fall. But yeah, just kind of taking things slow. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone, doing like tempos and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of what I need to kind of build that base for the 800. So I'm excited what that'll do for my event. But it's a bit of a grind, I won't lie.
Is it nice from the mental perspective to kind of check out, even though you are still training hard and doing probably all sorts of workouts that you wouldn't prefer to be doing, where you're not thinking about like running 159 or I need to hit my
Hmm.
200s in this pace or
Hmm.
whatever? Is it nice to have like this, I don't know, 4 to 6 month period where you kind of can check out mentally and not 6 months, 4 month period, where you can kind
Yeah.
of check out mentally and be like, nah, paces are paces. Obviously, you want to improve, but it's not like crazy 800-meter mindset. Every workout matters. I need to run this pace to have this confidence to run this race pace this upcoming weekend at BU or whatever it might be.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's like most fun about it because like I'm getting in the work, but I feel like I don't really have to like there's not really I just kind of have to show up and like, get the run done. There's nothing crazy to it. We're not doing really high intensity right now, which helps. Like I'm not on the track at all. I won't spike up for like a few months now. So it's really nothing's really related to like my event. I'm not running paces close to that. And even when I'm doing kind of faster stuff on the trail, it's just so different and has such a different feel. So it's kind of nice to like try something new for a little bit. And I'm still getting really good work in, but I don't have to kind of dial in like I did for like the first 6 months of this year. So yeah.
Is it fun for the other girls on the team to be able to have like the aerobic girls, like the 10K girls, to be able to potentially, I don't know, maybe you're hanging on in these workouts, but drop you? Whereas, track
Mhm.
season, anytime you guys do shorter stuff, it's probably you and Juliet just making everyone look like middle schoolers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like get such a benefit from training with like the girls in the Stanford team. Like we have I mean, Stanford historically has a very good distance team, and we just have a lot of really good girls this year that are just like great to train with. I'm not sure quite where I'll be, um, in comparison with them. They'll probably have like longer reps, but if they're doing like a couple mile tempo, maybe I'll hang on for a few of those miles. So it's really just a great benefit for all of us, and it's nice that we can like kind of aid each other in different types of workouts. Sometimes coach will have kind of shorter intervals, and I think that's where like someone like me or Juliet has more of a strength. But then on Friday we might have a tempo, and then we're getting dropped. So it's really just like humbling all the time, but it's really fun. I'm just kind of out there, just trying to get some work in. No pressure, but it's just really great to have like good teammates to train with for sure.
Going back to cross country, you said you didn't like it in high school. Why was that the case?
Well, I wasn't like as good at it, which is probably terrible to say, but I am very competitive. And so, when I would get up to those bigger races, I was just getting my butt kicked. And it was just so painful for so long. Like we would just get to the 2 mile mark and I was just like, this hurts so bad. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I found the workouts much more challenging. I like more speed work based stuff and going out for like tempos and stuff like that. I just found really challenging. But I don't know. I really did enjoy, like, especially my freshman year of high school. I remember we had really like fun team with a lot of camaraderie and just had a lot of fun, going to those Saturday morning races and, training with the girls and just kind of goofing off and having fun. So I do miss that aspect because I feel like track can be a little bit more individualized sometimes and there's just so much going on. There's just so many races and cross country, it's just like one race. So I found that really fun. But yeah, I feel like as I started to get more into track and my seasons were going later and later, it was hard to prepare for the cross country season in the fall like everyone else. So I found that a little bit tricky, but overall, I think it has a lot of fun camaraderie aspects, but the 5K I just found really, really tough. So yeah.
I have to ask you, high school version, or maybe even the competition will be listening and they'll know what to look out for this season if you're on a 6K or something. Were you the type of person with your 800 meter speed that like you didn't quite know the event well enough / you just didn't like it enough that you'd like sandbag, quote unquote, until like 400 meters to go and then like hawk down 100 people?
No, I feel like I would run it the opposite, honestly. Like I would go out, I mean, I'm trying to remember, but I feel like I could go out the first mile and feel really, really comfortable running like 5:30 pace or something like that because that felt relatively slow. And then I would get to the last mile and then it would all just catch up with me. So I feel like it kind of hurt me in that way because I would be going out and be like, this feels great. Like I'm chilling, like right up here in the front. And then I'm like, oh, that was not a smart idea. So yeah, I was definitely not hawking people down. I was the one dying. So yeah.
In recent recollection, let's exclude Stanford days, but like high school, middle school, because I feel like there are more gems of stories back then. Was there a race that you can remember where you went out way too hard and just absolutely blew up and were miserable for most of the race?
Oh, I'm trying. I don't think I did anything. I mean, I'm sure I did something at like a small meet where I didn't have to pay for it competition wise, but I remember my sophomore state meet. I don't know if I went out in the lead, but I was up there and I think the other girls went out pretty fast. And then the Wisconsin State meet course ends on this like the whole course is hilly, but it ends on a hill, which just makes it 10 times worse. I just remember like getting to the finish line and everything just went black. And then I woke up in the medical tent.
Oh my gosh.
With like, yeah, it was so like that's I went to the medical tent both times and stayed cross country. So that's my kind of experience with cross country, just so painful. So yeah, I feel like I definitely paid for it in that I just ran really, really hard that day. So that was a little tough.
Did you ever run the course in Kenosha where like Foot Locker Midwest is?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How brutal is that?
Well, actually, I never ran Foot Locker. I never ran that, but I grew up doing cross country, so I was running it since I was like 9. I don't think I've done the 5K course, but I've done the 2K, 3K, and 4K, so I can speak on that.
Oh.
But that was that's
wait,
brutal.
pause. 4K? What?
Yes.
What race is a 4K?
So the USATF has like a youth like cross country division or whatever. So they have different event distances. And I think like 13, 14 maybe or 11, 12 age group is like the 4K. So you move up a little bit each age group. So I think I did the 4K. I don't even such a random distance. I have no idea what time I ran, but I did it. So
obviously from Wisconsin, grew up there. The national meet is there many years, but it's coming back this year in 2024. Thomas Zimmerman takes on that course. I don't know. I wouldn't put it against you to make the team, but I'm assuming you won't be there. What's your general take on it? The national meet being in your home state.
Well, good luck to everybody. I hope you wear warm clothes or Wisconsin is nice to you because I'm a little bit concerned for people's well-being running in the cold. I don't know. Sometimes you get a warm day in November, but it also could be really scary and cold and snowy. So I'm a little bit concerned for them. I wouldn't want to be running in that. Um, but I feel like the weather is more of an issue than the course. I don't really know. I actually haven't run that course. I've only spectated it. It looks pretty brutal, like an honest cross country course. But I'm excited. I will be there to watch. So
Heck yeah.
catch me at. I won't be running. I don't want to be running, but I will be there. So I'm excited to see that. Hopefully, the weather is kind, everyone. I think it was snowing last time it was there.
hmm
So yeah, that wouldn't be fun, but we'll see. I don't know.
As someone who's in the NCAA, I found this out a few weeks ago. So Nutty Comb always happens, but because the national meet is at Thomas Zimmerman, they also have pre-nats at Thomas Zimmerman,
Mhm.
but they're keeping Nutty Comb. What's your take? That's just so weird to me. Like pre-nats and Nutty Comb are like a week apart, but yet they're holding it on the same course.
Oh, they're a week apart. Oh, that's
And
interesting.
it might be, I'll have to look up, I'll have to fact check
Okay.
myself there, but they're close
Okay.
in timing because normally teams pick one or the other.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be interesting. I feel like it's going to divide things up. I love seeing like Nuttycombe as kind of like a teller of how things are going to go. And I think that's it. I believe Stanford's going to Nuttycombe, not pre-nats. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't really know. I don't really know much about the cross country dynamics there, but yeah, it would be nice to see a lot of people go to Nuttycombe instead of kind of dividing it, but we'll see. Yeah.
I'm going to look this up. So Nutty Comb is, it looks like September 27th. And then, let me see. This year's event is set for Friday, September 27th, 2024. And then pre-nats is scheduled for Saturday, October 19th. So realistically,
Oh,
if you were a school, you
yeah.
could do both and the national meet and run there three
That's a
times in
lot of
1 year.
Nuttycombe.
I
It's a lot
know
of
it is. It's a
Madison,
lot of
but
Wisconsin. Is Madison, like, in terms of big city, how does it live up to the hype compared to other cities? Like, if you were an outsider, what's your take on like Wisconsin in general?
I think you would. I think people will like Madison. Madison's a cool place. It's very like hip, and they've got a lot of great restaurants. Like the campus is really pretty. I was there last week. But yeah, I love Madison. I don't think there's anything to dislike about it. It's not massive like Chicago, but I would say like there's a lot going on down there. So you're just walking around, you'll have a good time. It's not like the middle of nowhere or anything like where I live, but yeah.
Growing up in Ohio, like I feel like most Midwest states, that state hates a particular state a lot. Ohio, it was Michigan. Wisconsin, what's the state that you guys hated, if any? Of like you wouldn't want to live there or like you didn't like the teams from there or whatever.
I feel like there's a lot of like, well, there's like just beefs with like the Bears and the Vikings and stuff like that with like the Packers. I don't know if we hate a certain state. I feel like we're surrounded by Minnesota and Illinois, which has like Minneapolis and Chicago, which are cool cities. So I feel like we don't hate on those states because they've got like cool cities for us to go to. But I don't know. I feel like most of the beef there is just like with football. So, and I'm not really up to date on that beef, but yeah.
Are you a Packers fan?
I guess I would consider myself one. I
Let me
don't
ask you this.
like,
Is your dad a Packers fan? That's the real question.
well, okay, so I was born in Tallahassee. So,
Really?
yeah, so we're from Florida. So, but I don't know. He's more into like college football and stuff like that. Like he still follows like Florida and FSU and stuff like that. So I would say like he's more into that than like professional football and stuff. But yeah, we're not born Packers fans over here, unfortunately. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I think this has come out before, but I was a born Packer fan because my dad lived in Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
So I
nice.
couldn't tell you where. I think Madison actually. But
Okay.
his dad, so my grandpa like managed hospitals, so they moved like all the time. And
Hmm.
he was born in Peoria, Illinois, and then lived most of his life in Wisconsin, I think. So he went to
Wow.
like old Packers games when it was like freezing and stuff. So I have a cheese head at my parents' home.
Yes.
Did not bring it to me when I moved out, but it still exists. You're probably not up to date on college football whatsoever, but if your dad's a FSU fan, they're 0-2, so
Oh, yeah, I saw
rough
they
scene.
lost to Boston College. So, yeah, that's
But
interesting.
other fun fact, I'm going to Tallahassee in 2 days. So what are
Really?
I don't know how long you live there, but what are the recommendations? What's the coffee shop recommendation I always try to go to a new coffee shop if you have one.
Oh my gosh. I can't give you it off the top of my head, but I have cousins who live there, so
Okay,
and they would know the best place. So maybe I'll text you and let you know because
sweet.
they would give you the best directs. So got you.
I gotta ask you, Florida. So how long did you live in Florida for?
Only 3 years,
Okay, so you
but
wouldn't
I go
remember. I
back.
was gonna ask you. I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you hot weather to like hottest state to coldest state. What was that transition like? You probably wouldn't remember, but
I mean, I go back to Florida like pretty often. I was there twice this summer, so I still kind of know, the vibes. But yeah, ugh, Wisconsin winters are horrible, but I think I would still choose Wisconsin. Like, I like the seasons, and yeah, the weather's pretty nice here in the summers, and I like the falls. But I don't think like Florida summers. Ugh, it's just too sticky for me. So
I think a lot of people who aren't from the Midwest assume Midwest terrible winter. You assume 100% correctly, but on the contrary, I don't think they think the summers are as bad as they are. At least in Ohio, and I feel like surrounding areas gets super hot and crazy humid.
hmm
What's your take
yeah.
on training in the Midwest in the summer? Because I genuinely think it's like we'd always say in high school. Maybe this was just making ourselves out to be more than we were, but like
hmm
the classic saying like, "Oh, humidity's poor man's altitude." Like
hmm
we'd say
Yeah.
that all the time.
Well, I'm pretty far north, so I feel like we get pretty temperate summers. I mean, there will be humid times for sure, like a couple weeks in July, but right now, I mean, it's like 50 degrees in the morning, pretty cool at night, and I can run at any time of the day and have no issues, and it's like 70 degrees. So it's pretty temperate, I would say, where I am. But I have experienced some pretty humid days here. And really bad storms too, which are not fun. But yeah, I know a lot of other people in the Midwest who struggle a bit. But I feel like Ohio's a little bit farther south, so it might be a little bit worse. So
Yeah, humidity's terrible. It's the worst. But also it gets Ohio specifically, I think we have the most wide-ranging weather. I'm just going to pull up my weather forecast here for the viewers. Okay, so this Friday the high is 84, low of 61, and then the very next day Saturday, the low is 51 and the high is 65. So the
oh,
difference in
that's
high
crazy.
is 19 degrees. So it'll be like super hot one day or like in the spring specifically, it will legitimately like snow like 5 inches and then the next day it'll be like 50 and it's like how
Yes,
am I supposed to do any track work in this? Like this is make up your
so
mind.
typical.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through some. I don't even know what we've been talking about, but this is great. Let's go actual talk about some running. So take me
Okay.
through this past indoor season. I believe back to back NCAA title, right? In the indoor eight, maybe something
No, that
like
was
that.
not me.
No,
Unfortunately, that was Juliet. Um,
what'd
but
you win this indoor season? You won something. No,
I nothing big. I was runner up outdoors. But yeah, Julie and I
that's
went
what I'm
1-2
thinking.
outdoors. Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of.
That was a more high performance. Did not have the best indoor season, which is okay. But yeah, just dealt with like some sickness and just wasn't quite in my prime. Snuck a few good races in there, but nothing too special. But that's okay.
How did you manage that time period of, from your own words, like not the greatest time, not terrible, snuck a few good races in there? How did you keep that optimism going into the outdoor season?
Yeah, it was definitely uh, post indoor NCAs was not awesome. Definitely just kind of like stung my confidence a little bit. And just I felt like somewhat like I was like, oh, like I think I'm in somewhat good shape going into indoors, but just kind of had a bad day. Like it happens. I was kind of most of February dealing with like I got like some sort of strain of like strep throat, and then I was just like kind of on and off sick a lot. So that kind of made a lot of just like training and indoors pretty difficult. And then I really thought I could like pull it together for the national meet, but just kind of went out there and just like the wheels came off. So I think coming back from that was pretty challenging, honestly. And then when I came back from indoor nationals, I had finals as well. So that was just a lot of stress combined into like 1 or 2 weeks. But I actually got myself out there and did a home meet at Stanford like 2 weeks later, and I just did a 400 for fun, and I had a really great time doing it, honestly. And doing that kind of like sparked the love for like competing and like running again. And I think that was kind of a step in the right direction. It was just kind of a small win at home. Did it for fun, no pressure. So I think going into the outdoor season, I did a lot more home meets and just kind of locked in on my training a little bit more. And just tried to block out that noise, coming off of like a hard race is difficult, but really like the only thing to do was move forward. So that's just what we did.
Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong here, but first year in the NCAA was last year, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess 2022 fall, 2023, like indoor outdoor season. Remarkably successful. Then we talked about this last podcast, but you were very vocal about some struggles you had been having. For you, what was it like going from that like ultra successful first year that was really, really difficult in a plethora of ways and translating those lessons into this year?
Yeah, I feel like I changed so much throughout the year. In all honesty, like going back, like my sophomore fall wasn't really great either. And things really didn't start to get better till like November, December of my sophomore year. And then, right as things were starting to get better, then it was like, bam, track season, let's go. So that was definitely a lot, especially going through the same motions and a lot of the places and experiences that, weren't super positive for me, and having to jump back into like the pressure of the NCAA was a lot. But I had a much better like support system, I think, surrounded myself with a lot better people my sophomore year, and just really like prioritize like my own like, what, makes me feel fulfilled, and just prioritizing rest was huge. And so I would say like, even though like I definitely had a lot of performances that were disappointing my sophomore year, overall like quality of life like was so much better the second half of my sophomore year, and just had a really good time at Stanford, really good time training, things like that. And so I think overall it was a much more positive year, maybe not as rewarding, but I think like all of that hard work and a lot of that change that like came about during my sophomore year will hopefully translate into like, better times and stuff like that coming into like the second half of my college career. So yeah.
How crucial do you feel like it is to like enjoy life off the track to ultimately have success on the track? Because I think a lot of people, like even if their running is going well, if they're not enjoying life, or they aren't surrounded by encouraging positive people who are uplifting them, or a whole plethora of things, like it will affect your mindset and it will affect you on the track. And I think a lot of times people view like track and life as separate, and yes, they completely are, but they also inversely affect each other.
Yeah, I think like one thing you have to keep in mind is like, as athletes, like we're training so much of our time for these small moments, like these small performances, small meets and stuff like that. But really, there's just so much more time that we're actually living that's not those performances. So I think enjoying, the journey, as people say it, or just like, that time, at school where you're training, working, like hanging out with friends, it's so important to like enjoy that, because that's the majority of like life we get. Like those performances and small times, numbers, things we're working towards are ultimately really small and temporary. So I think even though there's things I wanted to accomplish my sophomore year, it was really nice to like look back and just have a lot of like happy memories, and really just know that I was enjoying like all that time, and I really used it to like the most. And I don't know, just really prioritize myself, was in a much better place, and was honestly like earnestly working towards those goals while still having a good time. And I think that's something, people need to keep in mind as collegiate athletes. You can still be very committed, but if you need to be enjoying the process for it to be fulfilling. So yeah.
We may have discussed this last time on the podcast, but I'm forgetting if we did so. And if we did, we can revisit it. But in high school, you were obviously so unbelievably dominant that I think, some of your times would have won NCAA meets as a high schooler. For you, what's the conversation been like with others, or even with yourself, and reflection and processing of like, okay, I have minimally 4 years at Stanford if I want, and like I need to view it as, okay, I don't need to accomplish everything I want to this specific year. Like I have so much time to do it. What's that balance been like with coming into the NCAA, as one of the best to ever do it in that high school level?
I feel like it was especially challenging this year because there was a lot of pressure I felt like that I put on myself to perform really well in 2024. I don't know if it was coming from anyone else specifically, but it was definitely like a goal I had and a lot of pressure. Like, I need to be the best I can ever be ever this year. Um, but which wasn't realistic, but it felt like that needed to happen. Which I was just not ready for at all. And it just certainly was not my time to be the best ever. And I think one thing I've reflected on since like ending this past season is like I still have so much more time. Like I felt like this year was like the end all, but I just turned 20. I'm going into my junior year of college. Like a lot of the athletes in the NCAA, like, they're seniors, fifth year, sixth year, stuff like that. And I probably won't get to the fifth year, sixth year range, but I think like there's so much more time and so many more seasons coming. So that kind of has made me more excited with just the amount of time I still have. Obviously this one year it would have been nice to run and really fast, but it just wasn't in the cards. So I think I'm really excited to have so much more time. I feel a lot more prepared for this next season. I feel like I'm starting sooner. I feel like I'm ready to kind of step into more a competitive space. Last year just felt so rushed. But I think I'm kind of at like the time now where I feel more mature and ready to handle, these next years. So I'm excited.
You mentioned this to me in relation to indoors, like getting sick and strep, but I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, at the trials this year, you got sick right before it. Something I'd love to have you speak to is like a listener out there who maybe they're sick at the start of their cross season and had to take a week off, or maybe someone's coming out of track a little disappointed they got sick at the most important meet of the year. Can you speak to like some of those outside factors that just suck? That's what they are. Like, it just sucks. There's no other way
Yeah.
to put it, but giving yourself the grace to view the bigger picture and be like, it's unfortunate. You can't do anything about it. I'm sad I wasn't healthy and couldn't fully go for it, but also like not beating yourself up over the fact of something you can't control.
Yeah. Definitely like before trials, I like the day before we left, I would just remember because I had felt it coming on the whole week, but I was just like, it's nothing. Like this is just not real. Like it's just like, just a little bit of residue from NCAA's and, the intensity of that. But then it's just getting worse. And like the day before we left, I just like couldn't get out of bed and I just felt awful and like I had a really bad like chest infection. And I just remember like getting so emotional and like going to my coach about it. And he was like, like we've had people, compete sick before, like we're just gonna get you there, like take vitamin C and like you're gonna be fine. And I was like, okay. And even though like I didn't line up to like my healthiest, I feel like I'm very proud of myself for getting myself to the line, and trying to like block off, the fact that I wasn't feeling well and still going out there and competing to the best I could. So I think there's a little bit of pride in that and knowing like I still really put myself out there and just like gave it everything I had, even though like it just wasn't really in my favor on that day. But I think it's just a sign that it just wasn't my time. And, there's, going to be races where I'm ready to go. And I'm very excited for that. But I think it's just kind of a sign that I wasn't quite ready. It wasn't my meet. So I'm kind of just taking it as that. It's frustrating, but all you can do is move forward, and there's going to be a meet where you line up where you're healthy and you're fit and you're excited to be there. It's going to be awesome. So I'm excited for that race to come. I've had them in the past, they'll come again. So better things are coming. I just think, wasn't in the cards for this year, and that's something we can accept. So
I will say, wasn't in the cards, still included making the U.S. Olympic trials, which every kid listening dreams of, and runner-up at NCAA's. Take me through that special day at NCAA's going 1-2 with Juliet and what that meant to you.
oh, that was a really weird day. I so we had the semis 2 days before, and me, Juliet, and the girl from Oklahoma State who ended up coming third were actually all slated in the same semi. And I was kind of expecting it to be maybe like a 201, 202 race, but then we all go like two flat low. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was just a brutal semi. And like I actually only got out on time. I didn't even make it automatically running like two flat. But yeah, so that race honestly took a lot out of me. And I was like throwing up afterwards, and I just
Oh
wasn't
no.
feeling well, and I kind of felt just like deflated and tired for so long bleeding into finals day. And so lining up, I'm just like, gosh, I just feel so tired. And it was like, it's the NCAA finals, like literally such a stacked field. There was so much going on that season, and it was just insanely intense, insanely just like nerve wracking. The only way to describe NCAA's was just like intense. Like you could just like cut the tension with a knife. Like it was crazy. But yeah, so we were like in the waiting room, to go out there, and I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like I'm just like I'm just gonna get dead last. Like it's just gonna happen, which is a terrible mindset. But I just like felt so like just nervous and tired and like overwhelmed. But I'm like, okay, just go out there, just go run. Like it's gonna be fine. So like the gun goes off, whatever. And like we're running like 200, 300 meters in. I'm like, I feel terrible. And I'm like, you know what, dude, just like hold on for dear life. Like just keep running, just keep running. So we get to like 200, and I'm like, okay, like I'm still kind of in there, but I'm like insanely boxed in right now. Like I don't even know what's going on. And then like we get to 100 to go, and I'm like, okay, just run for dear life, like run for your team, like Juliet's up there, like just go. And so I'm like, okay. And then like across the line, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we just went 1-2. Like how the heck did I like get up there? I don't even know. So I was just like kind of in shock because I went in with such a poor mentality, which is, maybe it's part of, just being so exhausted and stressed from that semi. And, I had gotten eliminated at the semifinals indoors. So it was my first national final that year. And so I just was kind of feeling like out of sorts. But, to finish second, I was just kind of in shock that I was able to get myself up there. And very grateful that I was able to do that for the team, go 1-2 was really exciting for everybody. So definitely a lot of joy with that one, but a little bit of surprise too.
I know a lot of people, like a lot of people struggle with pre-race anxiety. And I think a lot of times it can be freeing to a high school or college kid to hear someone like yourself who's one of the best to do it, to talk about having similar struggles. For you, are there any tips of things that you've found helpful in terms of helping to overcome some of those fears? Or is it one of those scenarios where you just get in the race and it's like, well, I'm just going to talk myself through another 200 meters?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely still working on it, but I definitely have made some progress this year. Just getting back out on the track was just really hard, especially what I had been through the year before. But I was very like happy that I was able to make it out on all the start lines this year, and just like have a much more positive experience, I think, with my racing. But yeah, I'm like very big on like having a very strict routine. I like to know like, how much time I have before everything. I don't like to feel rushed. That's a big thing for me. So like big on my routine, that really like helps calm me down. I also like a lot of like positive talk from like my coach. That really helps me. Just putting like his voice almost in my head, because I can't trust my own, like when you get so nervous and you're in those intense environments, that's when doubt starts to creep in. So I'm just like, you know what? I need to put someone who's like has a little bit more sound judgment right now and put them in my brain and put their thoughts in. So I think like having his like advice really helps soothe me, and just like, going out there and executing the plan. That's really all I can do. And just once like the gun goes off, everything really changes, honestly, and you just got to get yourself to run. So just sometimes just being like, just get yourself out there. You know what you're doing. Just get out there. That's really sometimes all you need to do. So that's my advice, but I'm definitely still working on it.
Talking about Juliet winning that race as well as making the Olympic team and making the Olympic final, you guys are like so supportive of one another. I remember in my conversation with her last year, she spoke so positively about, seeing you win and all of your success. And I know you feel very similar. Can you speak to that relationship and how cool it was to see your training partner and friend do so well this year?
Yeah, it definitely was very inspiring seeing all that she accomplished, and just like so proud of her for all the, just all the really intense environment she went into and just handled so gracefully. And, I haven't seen her yet since all of that. So I'm excited to see her in about a week or so. But yeah, I think it was really exciting to watch and, to see someone who you train with and see so often. And we basically live together. So to see her on those big stages was so exciting. And just to see her to perform to such a high level. I mean, she's been there for so long, like I've seen it. But, to see it play out on the world stage was definitely very exciting. So, yeah.
Talking beginning of September 2024, looking ahead to the next 3 months, what are some things you're looking forward to, ambitions you have, or just any things in the thoughts of Roisin Willis?
I mean, I'm excited to get back to the routine. I like, classes at Stanford, taking some fun ones this fall. And, I think like it'll be nice to kind of get on a routine with training and stuff, be back with my teammates. I started a YouTube channel now, so everybody go check that out.
Ayo.
So
that's
maybe
news.
So maybe I'll do some like Stanford. People will eat that up, like Stanford Day in the Life.
People eat that. Did you ever watch Charles back in the day? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
It's like 2 million views or something.
Yes. That was the first thing I watched when like Stanford was recruiting me. So I feel like that would be a great video to put out. So yeah, I feel like maybe I'll try and get on that and do some fun stuff there because we have a fun time over at Stanford. So I think people would enjoy watching it. So yeah.
Look at this live hitting the subscription.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Boom.
I'm honored.
Number 148, put in the books when Roisin is way bigger than the running effect. Okay, so something, you may have it in your Instagram, it's clearly in front of me on your YouTube, pronounce Roisin. Let's have a chat around the pronunciation of the name. Is it something announcers have caught on to, or fans, or are people still saying like, what do people normally say? Or do they get it normally?
I think it's getting to the point where they're mostly getting it. Yeah, especially at the bigger meets. I think NCAA has like the same announcers or commentators, so they've kind of got it. I think every so often people mess it up. Roisin, usually like when I go into like the call room with like bibs and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think like the Instagram helps because I don't know. It's a very easy way for people to see how to pronounce my name. But I get it if you see it on first, I don't really expect anything more, but it's usually Roisin. But I think people are getting there. I've met more people now, and so hopefully that's spreading, but it is, I haven't met anyone yet where they've been like, oh, hi, Roisin, which, is good, but probably going to have a few awkward interactions like that in the future. So
one of your teammates, I don't know if he's still there. He may have turned pro. One of the hardest names to pronounce on the podcast, and I might butcher it here, but I think I have it. This was last year. Udodi Onwuzurike.
Yes. Yeah.
Like going into that conversation, I was like, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust the announcers. I'm just going to ask him. I don't know how to say your name. How do I say it?
Yeah.
So there's some crazy names. And then there's another one. I think he runs for Kentucky now, but he was in high school when I talked to him. He was like the top hurdler recruit, and it was like Alexander, easy enough. Alexander, but it was like Chikwelu, but his last name was not at all like Chikwelu. No one would say Chikwelu on the first go.
Oh gosh.
So, but even I don't think people know how to say how. I'm gonna put you on the spot. How would you say my last name?
Schluter.
Yeah, so most people say that. And it's technically correct. Like if I was in Germany, because we're German, that would be correct. That's how. But it's technically Schluter, and no one says Schluter. Yeah.
I'll take that U out. That would help.
Yeah, it's weird. But like one day, like a while back in high school, when it was like picture day, and the photographer like calls up your name, he said Schlevetter, and I was like, "Where are you getting a V from, bro?"
They pull all sorts of things out there. You never know.
They really do. Closing out this conversation, a few more questions off the top of my head. If we were to talk 1 year from now, what's something we'd be celebrating?
Probably just my great track season. That sounds cocky, but I just feel like whether the times are good or bad, it's going to be a positive experience. Like we're just going to have a good time out there. I'm just here to bring the good vibes in 2025. So we're going to be celebrating that, whether it's, uber successful or not. I'm just here to bring the good vibes to the NCAA. I've had too many bad vibes like the past year. So I'm here for positivity, for, all the good stuff. So, I feel like we should be celebrating that. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Two more questions for you. Actually, three more, and I'll explain the third in a second.
Okay.
So the second one, what's something that's brought you joy off, I would say, track, grass, trails, bike paths recently? What's something that's brought you joy that's not running recently?
It's not running. Let's see. My friends back here in Wisconsin, I feel like I have really good relationships with a lot of my home friends here. Like they grew up with me, my childhood best friends. They're going to be my people for life. So I feel like just connecting with them this summer really just like brings out like the true Roisin. Going to Stanford, obviously I have so many amazing friends there, but just to come home and be with my people has been very comforting and just really nice. So yeah.
Final serious question for you. For those who have listened to our conversation today, you can go anywhere with this question. What would be the final takeaway message that you want to leave with them?
I guess, I've been on this podcast before and we talked about some heavy things there. But now like a year later-ish, I feel like I'm just doing really well and just having, a good time, whether or not like, the times I'm running on the track maybe are not what I wanted, but I think there's so much growth that can come from, things that aren't, material or, statistics or stuff like that. So I guess, people to take away, like there's a lot of joy that comes in life outside of, your performances on the track. Obviously those are great too, but, they're very temporary and, a lot of the joy and happiness in life comes from, your people and just, looking out for yourself. So I guess that would be my main takeaway. Life's good. I'm happy over here. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's what I love to hear. So explaining this. So I talked to you, you mentioned this correctly last June. And as you mentioned, it was like all very heavy subjects, which I'm so glad we did that episode, had so much impact, and really appreciate your openness to do that episode. Like in the whole history of the podcast, that's like top 5, like such a good, impactful episode. But because of and I could be wrong, I might have to fact check myself here, but I'm almost positive, because of the heavy nature of the episode, I wanted to give it its own space within the other episodes. And I asked the same question on every single podcast. But I was like, for that one, I was like, I'm not going to ask her the classic Gordon Ramsay question after like all of these heavy subjects. So circling back with you, normally I ask it the first time I do an episode with someone. For you, unique. Second time's the charm. Closing out today's conversation with Gordon Ramsay question. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
I love a good pesto pasta with chicken. I've really perfected that. I love pasta, I love pesto, and then I love protein. So I'd probably chef that up for him. It's nice, simple, easy. I also love tacos, but I don't know if it would be like Gordon Ramsay caliber. So I'm going to stick with the pesto pasta.
The pesto pasta. You got to create a YouTube video with the Roisin Willis pesto pasta special.
Oh, don't worry. It's in the first one. If you watch it, there's pesto pasta with chicken. Don't worry about it. So
there we go. People go watch that. Roisin, really appreciate the conversation. Keep crushing it. And yeah, super excited to see all the things God has in store for you for this next year. So enjoy Italy. Enjoy not having classwork to do on the plane, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye.